All right. Well, happy early Independence Day, as we just got to share and Dennis shared earlier. I definitely want to express my thanks to any servicemen, servicewomen, those who have helped protect our country, served our country, even if police officer, paramedic, etc. Absolutely, yes. You allow and sacrifice for the freedoms that we get to experience, and I want to thank you for that. If we haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name is Justin. I get the privilege of working with our student ministry, they are awesome. They're here and they're down front. For the next 2 weeks, we're in a collection. I don't want to call it a series because it's only 2 weeks, so I'm going to call it a collection, all right? I'm hipster like that. We're in a collection called Come and See. Come and See. And so if you have a copy of God's Word or you want to follow on the screens, we're going to be in John 4 in just a minute. So I'm going to give you some time to find it, all right? It's in the New Testament. There's a little head start for you. We're going to go through John 4 today. But before we get there, I want you to think about, I want to invite you to think about this question or this line. Like, what comes to your mind when you hear the power of an invitation? The power of an invitation. What comes to your mind? Maybe it's like a wedding. Maybe it's a birthday party. Some of us, we enjoy birthday parties, right? Maybe you got invited to go to like a really cool Braves. Like I got to go a couple weeks ago to a really cool like Braves game, but we got super special seats because my sister-in-law works there, so it was cool. But like, what comes by the power of an invitation? I'll share one fun story. A couple of months ago, if you don't know me, I love coffee, all right? Big coffee guy. Any coffee people in the house? Like, it's Jesus and coffee, right? The two, amen. I'm at least a 2-cup-a-day person. Sometimes my students witness me have 3 cups, and then it's game over. I get really wired, about like right now. I'm only 2 today, okay? You're good. We will be here for 3.5 hours, so buckle in. But no, I'm a big coffee person. And one of the cool perks of working at this location, like being planted where we are, is we have Phoenix Roasters like 5 minutes away. And if you've never had Phoenix Roasters, you are missing out, all right? I'll go ahead and tell you the Nitro Stout Truffle is the best $5 you will ever spend, okay? It's a cold brew coffee. It's like 4 cups in one. It's amazing. And so I do all my coffee meetings there when I get a chance to meet with students or leaders and a couple other connections in the community. And what's cool about Phoenix is they're a ministry. They're all Jesus people. Their whole thing is built on Jesus. Like, you get Bible verses on the top of your coffee mug. It's awesome. And like, they're so ministry-minded that the places that they grow their beans, they're actually equipping church planters and sending Bibles to and starting house churches not only there, but then they're also coming back here and they're doing house churches all over the area. And I got a love for ministry people. And so for whatever reason, I always end up in an hour-long conversation that's not even with the person I intended to talk to that day who was working at Phoenix. So because of that, I've made friends with Phoenix Roasters. They are my people, and I am theirs, I hope. But I got a cool invitation a couple of weeks ago to be in a commercial for them. I got a text during staff meeting, and I sent my wife a quick text. I was like, hey, they want me to come in and do a commercial for them. And she's like, you should do that. So really cool story. I got to be in a commercial as a super corny, derpy barista, and then I have still yet to see the commercial. I've talked to them. What they did is they made an ad on social media, and because I don't need ads to sell me on Phoenix Roasters, I've yet to see it. So if your phones are hearing you, which they are, and you see Phoenix Roaster ads today and I'm in it, will you please find a way to send that to me? I really want my mom to watch that commercial. But that was a cool invitation, but was there power in it? Like, I was invited to be in a commercial, but did my life really change because of the invitation? I got a cool free bag of coffee. It lasted us a week because I drank a lot of it, right? But not much changed. However, when I invited my wife, who into marriage, like holy covenant before God, two become one, that whole deal, everything changed. We share a house. We're doing bathroom renovations, so I'm covered in fiberglass this morning. All right, there's no water at my house. I had to turn it off yesterday at the street. It's awesome, but that was all a change. We made a kid. She's great, but then she's also part us. All right, so sometimes less great. But that's beautiful. And then I inherited a whole set of in-laws who aren't here today, so I can say that. And sometimes it's like having outlaws. Y'all know what I'm talking about. We'll leave it right there. But I want you to think on that, the power of an invitation. Some invitations can change everything. And why I want to talk about this morning is because if we're honest, we're really good at inviting people into our lives who are very similar to us. We're really good at inviting people to experience Jesus who are kind of already following Jesus. Like if you meet somebody at the store and you get to talking, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm from the Baptist church down the street. You're like, ooh, Baptist, but you already do the church thing. I can make fun of Baptists, okay? I am one, okay? was, recovering, liberated is what Pastor Andy loves to joke. I'm a liberated Baptist, so pray for me. It's cool. It's been a long journey. But like they're already kind of doing the church thing, so you kind of invite them. You meet the Presbyterian or the Catholic, like you're like, oh, okay, you view certain things different, but you're already similar enough that I can kind of hang out with you. But what about people who aren't like you at all? Who might even be opposed? And that's what I want to do in this short 2 weeks is kind of talk through the invitation, and then next week we'll look a little bit more at like what are we hoping they see in us when we invite them. But understand the invitation that I think you first need to invite people to come and see in your life is not that they come to church right away. I think it's that you invite them into your life, period, and see Jesus in your life. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to examine this account in John 4, because I think the best person to learn anything from is Jesus. He's kind of perfect. So we're going to look at his example and hopefully get some practical handholds for how that invitation can look. And so if you'll join me, John 4, we're going to start verse 1 because context is important. I'm big on context. Verse 1, now Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that he was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John. Although in fact it was not Jesus who baptized, but his disciples. So he left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. So just for quick context, basically Jesus has a ministry. His cousin John was like a precursor ministry. He was the prophet crying out in the wilderness, hey, there's one coming greater than I. Jesus' ministry has now started. The author is telling us that it's now growing and growing so much the Pharisees are like, ooh, we don't like you. You're robbing us of influence. And so Jesus is like, I don't have time for you right now. I'll handle you later. So he's like, hey, we're gonna travel. Cool? So I did a little bit of geography because geography is important. I don't like geography, but I had to. So I pulled up a map of Israel, and just to kind of help you out here, Judea is in the southern part of the country of Israel. There's no map on the screen. I'm apologize. Just work with me, okay? Imagine a triangle, and you're really close, or an awkward rectangle. That's kind of what Israel looks like. It's like an awkward rectangle. Yeah. So it's this region in the south, and then Galilee is in the north, okay? And basically, the easiest way to get from Judea to Galilee is you would follow the Jordan River, which runs straight up and through it. But you cross through this small area called Samaria. And actually, a lot of like really upstanding Jews, if they were proud of who they were and had followed the law and all this stuff, they would go all the way around Samaria. There's a lot of beef there. There's a lot of history that we're not going to fully dig into today. But I just wanted you to have that picture of like, most of the time, a good upstanding Jew would go completely around Samaria in order to get to Judea, and so it would be the long way around. Except for this day, Jesus and his crew are going to go through it. Verse 4 says, now he had to go through Samaria. And I want to pause here for a second. Because it's so often that in our Bible study time or when we're reading scriptures or we're listening, we'll tend to skip through these little verses. And we can miss a whole bunch of context or some possible implications that bring a lot to the table. The first phrase I get stuck on is he had to go. This is Jesus. He's the Son of God, which means he is God. He don't have to do anything. He could have levitated over Samaria. He could have teleported him and his disciples to Judea. Like, he doesn't have to go through Samaria, but he's choosing to. He's choosing to go through Samaria, and I get this, to me this screams this kind of churchy term, so I do apologize, I'm corny, but it screams like divine appointment. Anybody ever heard of like divine appointment? Someone's like talking to you, and you're like, oh yeah, it's a divine appointment. Basically, Jesus had business in Samaria set up by God for him to go and do a thing in that town. So let me ask you this, do you recognize the divine appointment set up in your life? Those opportunities to invite people a little closer to Jesus. I was at lunch the other day with one of our gentlemen here at the church. He's awesome. I won't say his name because he'll get embarrassed, but I love him. We're at lunch, and we're talking a little bit about this, and he told me this, and it was fascinating. He goes, before I leave the house every day, I pray that God would show me an opportunity to present the gospel or to talk to somebody about Jesus wherever I'm at. He's like, it doesn't always happen, but I pray specifically that he would show me an opportunity. That means that this gentleman is praying for a divine appointment. That's some bold faith, because I'll tell you honestly, I don't pray those kind of prayers. Like, I'm not the greatest evangelist. I can't be at Walmart talking to the store clerk. Unless she brings up something, I'm like, ooh, I can jump in there. Like, I'm not praying ahead of time. This man's putting down like the pavement. He's getting it ready. He's preparing himself. And so he prays for these divine appointments. Now, verse 4 is back to that. Samaria is significant because, as I mentioned, most, if not all, Jews would avoid Samaria at any cost. And the reason why is because, well, these two groups were, as our student friend would say, and now they'll never say it again, is they're having beef. Samaritans and Jews are having beef. They're worse than Democrats and Republicans in a debate on Twitter. Okay? It's that bad. Jews literally viewed Samaritans as like this half-breed. Like, that's the way they call them in my research that I was digging into, and there's more context and story in Nehemiah about it, but basically the two are at odds. They share one piece of faith and similar, and then the rest completely diverges, and Jews just go all the way around them. And so it's really, really bad, and it wouldn't exactly be safe or even welcoming to Jesus and his disciples at all. So Jesus and his disciples are called into a hard place, filled with hard people, with little to no acceptance. Friend, if you're in here this morning and you identify as a Christ follower in this room, then we too are often called into hard places, filled with hard people, and will receive little to no acceptance. And yet these are the people God loves, just as he loved and loves you, even before you accepted the call to follow him. So here's a question that you can sit in and perhaps even ask across lunch today from people who know and love you. Who are you going all the way around that God has called you to invite? Who are you going in your daily lives all the way around that God has called you to invite? You see, 1 Peter 3:9 tells us that God wishes none to perish. And in the Great Commission found in the gospel accounts, Jesus gives us his authority to go and invite others into that relationship with him. But this means inviting people who look different, talk different, and are different than us into experiencing what we have found with Jesus. So follow along with me. We're going to read a brief interaction that Jesus has with the woman in Samaria, and then we're going to do our best to relate it to people around us. Verse 5, so he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar. Say Sychar. Good, you're paying attention. Near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. That's an important detail. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Now I need you to hear some tone in this. You see, the Samaritan woman here is being a little snarky, actually, with Jesus. Like that question's got some sarcasm, like, we don't associate. You're a Jew. Why are you even talking to me? Like, why are you looking at me? Who am I to draw water? And then we know from reading ahead, plus some cultural context, that she is drawing water when there wouldn't be anybody else at the well. Traditionally, in that time, all the women would go first thing in the morning when it's not hot as all get out outside, as we are currently experiencing this weekend, and they would go while it's cool to go draw water for their families and any kind of household needs they would have for the rest of their day. And that's where all their social interaction and town gossip and all that stuff would go around. So for this woman to go by herself at noon means there's something in her story that causes her to feel shame. And so she's there by herself when she knows nobody's going to point it out or bring it up, and she can feel a bit more comfortable. I like the way one commentator describes this woman. He writes, "She is of mature age and has had a not altogether reputable past. She is frivolous, ready to talk with strangers, with a tongue quick to turn grave things into jests. And yet she possesses, hidden beneath masses of unclean vanities, a conscience and a yearning for something better than she has." And here's the thought that I had when I read that is, isn't that most broken people? Isn't that most of us? Aren't we quick to hide the hurt under jokes and sarcasm? Like Chandler Bing from Friends, always quick with the joke and the comeback. We'll embrace the self-deprecation because at least with humor we feel a little bit better about our hurt. And then on top of that, aren't we desperate for anything that provides hope? And so even though she would not have associated normally with Jesus or Jews, she is willing to talk to this strange man at a strange time because perhaps he could provide something she did not have. Friends, who are the people in our Samarias that need to hear some hope? Who has been in our pockets, our circles of influence, who they feel like they've been rejected by culture or by society, by friends, by family. And so in a sense, in a metaphorical sense, they are at a well by themselves in the middle of the day when nobody else would be around. Who's in our Samarias who need some hope? And I bring this up because Jesus, what he offers next is what we're called to invite others into experiencing. Verse 10 says, Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water." "Sir," the woman said, "you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep." Notice that tone. She's still kind of egging it on. "Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and his livestock?" Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I will give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." Living water. That's what he's offering her, living water, water that satisfies our soul. Jesus is our full satisfaction. He's our full satisfaction, and we are not to selfishly hold on to him. These people that are around you in your workplaces, in your schools, your places of business, maybe even your neighborhoods, your book clubs, your community groups, maybe even somebody in your Refresh group. Yes, even there. There are people who need to hear about this living water. Because there are people around us who, like this woman, may be chasing things in hopes to satisfy their soul. Our culture parades it in front of us. If you just make more money, you'll be satisfied. If your 401k is this large, you'll be satisfied. Hey, this next relationship, he's the one. He looks a little bit like the last guy, but it'll be all right. He's the one. He's the one that can be, it'll fit. It'll be great, right? He's the perfect match. Social media influence. Hey, you just need more influence. The more followers you get, the more content you'll be about who you are and the image that you portray. Maybe it's the vehicles you drive, the cell phone you have, the instrument you play. I don't know what it is for you. But culture has something. They're trying to sell you a tag of saying, this will give you satisfaction. And eventually that stuff rots. Eventually that stuff expires. Your car will develop rust. I'm sorry. It's just the truth of it. And it needs oil changes. It won't satisfy. But Jesus, that's true satisfaction. What he did on the cross, declaring that he was the eternal victory, promising that eternal freedom for you and for me, that's pure satisfaction. We know that when he says, hey, I'll give you rest, he means it. Because he's the only person to have said, hey, I'm going to die and then get back up out of that grave in 3 days, and kept his word. So Jesus is this true satisfaction. So here's this thought that you can write down or you can hang on to, you can talk about it at lunch, but it's as followers, if you would say, hey, I follow Jesus, as followers, we are able to bring others to the well of living water. We're able to bring others to the well of living water. We cannot force them to drink. Unfortunately, we've seen too many churches and pastors and leaders who have tried to force the drinking of the living water, and that's not our role. That's not our role, but we can help guide and bring people to the well. And we can certainly introduce them. Now you may ask, okay, that sounds great, but how do I get people in my circles, in my workplace, how do I get them to get close to this living water? And so I want to share with you this old student ministry quote, because if we're being honest, or I'm going to share this, as adults, I think we need to actually be more like our students, okay? Have a little bit of fun, go to camp, that kind of thing. But I think let's learn from this quote as well, and it says this, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. We do care about the state of the souls of the people around us. But do those people know that you care about the state of their soul? Maybe instead of inviting them to church, you just invite them to coffee. Go to Phoenix Roasters. Highly recommend. Take them to Chili's. Pay for a cheap steak, sort of. And just get to know them. Let them speak. And I'm going to share more of that in a second, but do they know you care? We know you care. We all, I think we would say, we care about the state of the souls of the people around us, but do they know that we care? So before you start spouting off information and inviting them to church, maybe sit with them in their season of life for a little bit. Jesus continues this interaction, and it's out of this. I'm going to draw a few handholds that might help you with those moments with those people. Verse 15, the woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water." She still thinks he's talking about a physical water, not one for her soul. He told her, "Go call your husband and come back." "I have no husband," she replied. Jesus said to her, "You are right. When you say you have no husband, the fact is you have had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have said is quite true." "Sir," the woman said, "I can see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place where we must worship is in Jerusalem." "Woman," Jesus replied, "believe me, a time is coming." I'm sorry, I lost my place. "When you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming and has now come when the true worshipers will worship the Father in the Spirit and in truth, for they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is Spirit, and his worshipers must worship in the Spirit and in truth." The woman said, I know that Messiah, called Christ, is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us." Then Jesus declared, "I, the one speaking to you, I am he." And there's a lot in there, and you've probably heard other people preach it way better and talk through it, but here's what I want to do with this. I want to draw 3 handholds from this conversation. We're not getting into the nitty-gritty details of the conversation. We're examining how Jesus worked through this conversation with this woman. And the first point is this: embrace the tension. Embrace the tension. Am I suggesting that you call out the sins of other people around you? Not necessarily, no. Jesus did that to prove that he was the Messiah. It's what helped move the next thing. But when people start getting to know you and you start asking questions deeper than just, "How are you today?" and you don't let them just respond with, "I'm fine," because that's the most American response we have, or "I'm tired," but you go a little bit deeper and they start sharing, "Well, I've got a divorce going on. My friend has cancer. My student's not passing his classes," et cetera, so forth, and embrace it. Don't linger in it, but embrace their tension. Acknowledge, "Oh, that's hard. That's hurt. You've got some stuff going on." Listen to their struggles. Because this conversation, you see, it turned from living water to men, possibly implying this woman was trying to satisfy the hole in her heart with the men who kept disappointing. When you allow people to share the truth of what's going on in their worlds is when they will begin to see that you care. She shared openly, and Jesus didn't condemn her for it. He didn't affirm her for it either, but he sat with her in it. Can you sit with people in the tension? Embrace the tension. Number 2 is this: allow the other person to dictate the flow of conversation. Now, this might be a touch more nuanced depending on your situation and who you're chatting with, but notice that Jesus never redirects the conversation after the tension. He didn't go, hold on, we didn't talk about Steve, okay? Or Mark, or this other guy that you were with. He didn't go back there. He also didn't change it and start talking about, like, I don't know, aliens, right? No, he let her guide it. She led it, and then he simply answered her questions about mountains and places of worship. And his answers are leading her on a journey of discovery, not condemnation. So let people ask questions of you. Let them lead the conversation and answer as honestly to what you can, and then allow space for "I don't knows" and employ leading questions. That "I don't know" statement is great. We have a student, if I can share this, we did a testimony night a couple weeks ago. We had a student, she's originally from the Johns Creek campus. Now we're all one, which is awesome. And so she was sharing, and she was telling us that as the churches were coming together, her faith had kind of been in this rocky place. And she was like, I don't know, like, all this stuff is going on. I have questions, but she didn't feel like she could have questions. And so she's sharing, and she goes, what was cool is as we started going to like fall retreat and flow weekend, and she goes, I saw that the high school girls would sit and debate and ask open-ended questions, and we're okay with I don't know. She goes, and then Justin said he didn't know either. And so I'm doing a great job, y'all. But at least we can be honest about it. Like there are things that I don't know. And I'm okay saying, I don't know, and they get back to you, hopefully. If I didn't get back to one of y'all, just text me, okay? Things happen. Life's real. But sit in the I don't knows with other people. And then the third thing is this. When it's appropriate, point them to Jesus. Point them to Jesus. Notice he points the woman to himself. He announces himself as the fulfillment of prophecies and ultimate satisfaction. He is the living water. Friends, many of you believe that Jesus is who he claims to be, that he is the Son of God, the Redeemer of the world. And in these conversations, I would suggest that you pray like my friend that I had lunch with for an opportunity to point them to Jesus. It might not be that first coffee meeting. That first one might be letting them vent. It might be the 6th coffee meeting where they go, okay, hold on. You've now sat with me for 6 coffee meetings in a row. You've heard about all my life junk. What's different about you? Why haven't you condemned me? Why haven't you ignored me? Why haven't you ghosted me? What's going on? That might be your moment. It might be your door. And maybe for you, you're like, I don't know how to talk about my faith. That's when you'd be like, hey, my church has actually helped me with listening. Come sit with me. Could you come sit? Or maybe you do. You have that kind of faith and that boldness, and it's different giftings for everybody. There's no shame if you're like, I just need to go out into the church. But maybe you can be like, actually, I followed this guy named Jesus. He lived 2,000 years ago, wild story, right? But he got up out of the grave, and he lives, and he provides peace. And that's why I can sit with you, because he also taught me patience, because he was patient with me. So point them to Jesus. So I'd like to conclude our time by examining how this woman's story concluded. John 4, we're going to skip ahead to verse 28 here. It says, then leaving her water jar, the woman went back to the town and said to the people, come see a man who told me everything I did. Could this be the Messiah? They came out of the town and made their way toward him. Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me everything I ever did. That was her testimony. So when the Samaritans came to him, they urged him to stay with them, and he stayed 2 days. And because of his words, many more became believers. They said to the woman, we no longer believe just because of what you said. Now we have heard for ourselves, and we know that this man really is the Savior of the world. You see, the way this woman shared is the other side of your invitation to others for them to come and see. She shared authentically and open. She shared authentically and open. She didn't say, hey, I come and met a man who said stuff about a mountain. You should come listen to this. No, she said, he told me everything I did. And mind you, all of them are like, we already know what you did. Like, you're the talk of the town. That's why you go at noon and we all go at 6 a.m. But this time, instead of coming from a place of shame, she came from a place of like, he knew me. He knew me he knew me. And then he didn't condemn me, but he provided me a hope and a restoration and a satisfaction. Friends, what would it look like if when you started inviting those people to coffee with you, if sometimes when things got a little icky, you embraced the mess? And you said, you know what? I'm jacked up too. Like, I got brokenness, or I struggle with anxiety. I got stuff going on at home as well. Like, I'm not perfect. I just believe in one who is. Like, what if your honesty about who you actually are, not the front you put on a Sunday, but like Thursday morning you, when you're like, boy, I've had it this week, right? But Friday's not quite here yet, so you're not celebrating. Like, what if that's the you that you shared with people around you? That plus some Jesus in it, right? She admits to her flaws. Her brokenness and her sin become a part of her testimony. And then she openly says, could this be the Messiah? She was open for testing. But the testing doesn't fall on her. The testing would fall on Jesus. Same goes for you and for me. When we start inviting people to come and experience Jesus, they're going to test. Find a way to say, hey, that's great. Maybe try it for a month. Maybe try praying for a month and see what changes. Maybe 15 minutes in the Word every day. You'd be amazed at how when you're not on Instagram first thing in the morning, your brain feels a little bit more clear, right? Maybe just try it. Have them test Jesus. We're human. We're going to fail. but he's perfect. And so I love what happens here is the belief in Jesus, it moves from her testimony to their personal experience. So friends, church family, as you prepare to leave this place, here's what I want to encourage you with. Those that see Jesus in you and begin to believe will eventually believe because of Jesus in their lives and more than just your testimony. And that's a good thing. You don't want their only experience of Jesus to just be you. It's a great starting place, but you want them to get to a point where they look at you and go, we believe because we have seen and heard and we have tasted that he is good. It's a beautiful thing. So by way of reminder and hopefully as an aid, my main idea for this week is this. And you can practice it hopefully by inviting a coworker or a friend or a family member. It's just coffee or lunch. Start there. Food is a great way to the heart, just saying. Share authentically in the place you are called to serve. Share authentically in the place you are called to serve. Maybe this week it means finally going through your Samaria and not avoiding that one person. And for others, perhaps, it's just getting past basic pleasantries and get to know somebody for who they really are and for their issues and their struggles and what they're walking through. So for all of us, let's share authentically. God healed and is healing a broken us. Sharing about our brokenness shows that we care. Because again, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I'd like to invite the band back up here. We're going to start closing our time. The ushers can come forward as well. We're going to close in a time of response. And so the way we respond is we're going to sing one more song. It's going to be epic, right? It's going to be good. So we're going to sing one more song. We're going to give because God first gave to us. And so we give back as a response to him and what he's done. The other thing I want to invite you into is two things. One, maybe you know who your Samaritan woman is. That person that you've been going all the way around. I would invite you to pray in your seat, or you can come forward. If you want to come up here and pray, I'm willing to pray over you. We have some people in the room who I believe would move and lay a hand on you and pray over you. And so I would invite you to come forward and pray and take that response to kneel before the Father. And like my friend, pray for that divine appointment. Pray for that boldness to step out and say, hey, can I just get to know you? Can I take you to coffee? It's on me. The second invitation is this. Maybe you're sitting in here and you are hearing about living water for the first time. Or maybe today living water makes sense. And you're like, I've been drinking from a well that keeps running dry. I've been trying to drink from alcohol or social media, friends, relationships, addictions, whatever. And it's not satisfying. Friend, today I would invite you to start that relationship with Jesus. He is better than life. He's worth it. I would invite you to come and see that he is good. And if that's you and you want that living water that satisfies, you can also come down front. I would love to pray over you. I will make an audible and say, Ryan George will pray over you. There are other men in this room who would come and take a step towards you, and we would love to walk in that relationship with you. Or if you'd like to just pray in your seat, but I would invite you to do more than just sing in this moment. I would invite you to respond with some prayer. But we're also going to sing and we're going to give. Let me pray for you. Dear God, thank you so much for today. Thank you for your word. Thank you that you came to us and invited us into a relationship with you. And I pray that we would not waste our response. For those of us who have said yes, that we would not hold selfishly on to you, but we would go to the people in our communities and begin to walk with them and to sit with them. God, I pray that you would just move in this place. I pray if there's just even one person in here who's never tasted living water, that regardless of how they get to taste it today, that they would find time to sit down and in their heart of hearts, call out to you. Because you've already extended your hand of grace towards them. And so I pray over this time as we respond. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen.